So, hi folks, this is Karen Trepte, Gaijin Works Coaching. So happy to see all of you here today. I'm really enjoying being your productivity coach, and I have the great honor today to introduce Tami McVay. Now, I want to tell you one thing before I get into her specifically, and that is you're like, okay, why are you bringing an exercise and a nutrition coach on when you're talking all about productivity? Well, I'll tell you why. Even Sir Richard Branson himself has given the biggest tip to productivity is to exercise. And Tami is an amazing, amazing coach. I've been following her blogs and really enjoying her ebooks and so forth. She's a very wise woman. So I'm hoping you will listen to her today. And I am going to let her introduce her background, including being a Marine, which I never in a million miles would have guessed. She's one of the sweetest people and dearest friends I have. So go ahead, Tami, and tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me here. I'm really thrilled. And the quote that you had said about Richard Branson really couldn't be more true. And that's one thing that I do. I was in corporate for 20 years. And so I just know the value of taking care of my health and how much that impacts in my success all the way around, and why I had this passion for coaching and wanted to help teach others.
Great. So tell us a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what you do. You have such a fascinating background, Tami. Can you tell us a little bit about being a Marine and kind of what got you into weightlifting?
Absolutely. When I when I was in high school, I was an honor student, and my family, nobody had gone to college. And so to me, it was this big, expensive thing. And nobody told me it was okay to not know what I wanted to do. And the military had always interested me. And so I wanted to go into the Air Force, actually. And the recruiter had told me I could be a secretary or a cook. And so I thought, well, I don't want to do that. I was too smart for that. And so the Marine Corps, my boyfriend at the time, his sister was a Marine, and she was stationed in Hawaii, and she was pretty, and she's having fun. And I thought, hey, I can do that. So I joined the Marine Corps. And now that I'm older, I have such an appreciation for that time because I was so young, and it really helped shape who I am as an adult. You know, I'm confident, I'm dedicated, I won't quit. And I just don't whine about things. I just make a new decision and I change directions. So from that, I ended up becoming a software developer. I worked for an engineering firm for 20 years, and I never even went to college. I just started following my natural talents and gifts. And it was an amazing experience, but it also wasn't very heart-centered. And so I knew I was craving something more. I wanted something different. And on the side, I had been very active with friends. We traveled a lot. We biked. And I knew that I wanted to feed that side of me. And so I took the leap, and here I am as a full-time wellness and lifestyle coach.
Fantastic. So you have at least 2 different offerings that I know of. Why don't you kind of take us through those, and then at the end of this we'll bring people back through them again.
Okay, so I really have 2 different offerings. One is, now that I'm in my 40s, I absolutely love lifting weights because I know that that's the one change that really impacts my body and the way it looks and the way I feel. And so it really frustrates me when I hear women say that they're afraid to bulk up. They don't really know what to do. And so I see them wandering around the gym lost. And so I have a program called Women in Weights, Overcome Your Fears and Discover Your Strength. Because when you really know what you're doing and you can get fit, it brings out this confidence in you. And then that translates into business and productivity, like you'd said. My second program is Find Your Passion. And I found that because of my diverse career experience, and when I went from a software developer to a wellness and lifestyle coach, people were completely intrigued by that and wanted to know how I was able to establish myself as an expert in a whole other industry. And so I love helping others start that journey and figure out what they want to do and how to get started and start connecting with people. And so that's been a lot of fun because I never know what I'm going to get myself into.
That's awesome, Tami. Now, don't you have then a third offering with nutrition? Don't you have a program that's going on right now?
Yes, February 17th, I'm kicking off, I call it the Clean Eating Kickoff. And this is just 2 weeks of really buckling down and doing nothing but whole foods. So that way you can kind of reset your body, especially if you splurged over the holidays, and really discover how foods impact you. For me, brain fog is a big problem. And I eat really healthy, but when I really dial it in, I can see that it's like night and day. 3 days into it, and all of a sudden I can think clearly, and I'm much more productive, and I'm sleeping better. So that starts February 17th. So
that's great. That's great. I know for myself right now, it seems to have cleared up, knock on wood, and I do eat pretty healthy. But I know going through those hormonal changes as a woman, that one of those symptoms is also brain fog. And so that can be an issue definitely for a lot of us as we age younger. I went to the doctor's office the other day and I heard this brilliant secretary on the phone. She's like, "No, you're not 72 years old. You're 72 years young." And I thought, right on. That's really a great way to encourage your patient and let him live his fullest for right now. So let's go backwards in order then. Let's talk about the nutrition so we can give our listeners just as much value as possible. If you were going to give them 3 tips as to what to do to improve their nutrition, what would you say, Tami?
First of all, I would really suggest taking control of the meals that when you're by yourself. So it doesn't really matter. So you can have a salad when you're just sitting at your desk working at the computer, or you have a smoothie for breakfast. So then that way, when you get invited out to social events or you have luncheons or whatever, then you don't have to worry about it. If you have this big bowl of pasta because everybody else is having pasta, that's okay, because ultimately in the long run, you're eating healthier more often. So that's one of my biggest tips. The second would probably be to really cut back or eliminate sugar. I just find that it impacts my mental state so much. And I love that you talked about the hormonal changes as you get older, because I think that it's really easy to convince ourselves that that's why we're kind of tired, why we can't really focus, and we just say, oh, I'm getting older. And that absolutely does not have to be a given. So you can take control of that. Sugar's a big one. And then I've recently cut out caffeine. And I know that, many times you have your couple of cups of coffee in the morning, and then in the afternoon, maybe you need a little pick-me-up. But I'm finding that I don't have that slump. So when I don't start my day with caffeine, I just have herbal tea or lemon water in the morning, I actually have energy, and the water tastes just as good. So it's not always easy, but if you start cutting back, you may notice a difference.
I'd say tremendously you will notice a difference. I've had so many careers in my life. And one of them was working in a chiropractic office, and I did get involved in health myself very early on in my youth, because I married a Vietnam vet, my first husband. So at that point, I thought I could change the world and definitely at least change one person, and that's not true. But the silver lining to that is that it got me into health, and I started taking all kinds of classes to try and help him. And when I was in the chiropractor's office, I used to teach this actually, how that caffeine and the sugar equally will really affect our adrenal glands. And so it will give us like this big boost in our blood sugar, and we'll feel better. We'll feel kind of high. And then all of a sudden, it's really going to cause that crash. And most recently, I was doing a cleanse myself, and my husband cut out caffeine. So I'm going to back you up 1,000%. He's like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. He was complaining to me every day how tired he is. And you're absolutely right, Tami.
Yes, my last year in my corporate career, I was the most stressed out I had ever been, and I was drinking so much coffee, and so that was the biggest habit to break for me. But it's definitely well worth it.
Yes, it is. Now, I have done a little bit better on most recently, but let's say somebody doesn't want to go on a cleanse like I just did. What other ways can they start to cut back on sugar or even cut back on caffeine? Like, what recommendations would you give them?
Well, when it comes to caffeine, one thing that you can do, is, especially to start weaning yourself off, is mix half coffee and half tea. You may not even really notice there for a while. And then you can gradually cut back and maybe do one day of that and then another day of tea and start alternating. Another thing that I've done is implement warm lemon water in the morning with salt, and that'll help replenish your electrolytes and help your pH balance. And so then once I have that lemony taste on my tongue, like I think it just does something to my taste buds, and it really cuts down on those sugar cravings and that caffeine.
And you put, I'm very familiar with lemon water. I actually have some right here. But I've never heard of putting the salt in it for the electrolytes. That's fascinating.
So it's just a little bit, and it's especially when you're really eating a lot of greens and trying to do more of a natural cleanse, then that just helps replenish any fluids and electrolytes that you're losing. So I also throw in a dash of apple cider vinegar as well. So it has the same effects. And then it has, some call it a prebiotic, and that is just where the good, it helps feed the good bacteria in your digestion.
Yes, prebiotics and probiotics are absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Some people don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit about the flora and the intestines? I mean, some people don't even know that that's what we have in there naturally, and it's actually a wonderful thing to do to increase the good guys in there.
Yes, definitely. More and more research is starting to show that everything's coming back to your gut, and some call it the second brain. Because when your digestive system is firing on all cylinders, then you can start to absorb all those nutrients and vitamins and minerals that you've been eating. But when it's not functioning right, then all that good stuff just goes right on through, and you're not getting those benefits. And so by adding in a lot more probiotics, whether that's Greek yogurt or some of the drinks now that are out there. I mean, that's the great thing about, the health industry and how it's changing. You can add a lot of that in there. And so, and by not eating those processed foods, then it just makes it easier for your body to do what it needs to do naturally.
Awesome. Now on your blog, I just need to give you another couple of kudos on that. I haven't tried it yet. I'm like, I'm out of my milk, out of my almond milk, but I really want to try your turmeric. I love taking turmeric myself anyway, but you want to tell us about your golden tea that's on your blog? I mean, folks, really, if you're not on Tami's blog already, you should get on, because she's just so generous with all the information and recipes that she gives.
Yes, this is actually my new favorite treat in the evening, especially here in Denver. Right now we just had a big blizzard, and you read so many benefits about turmeric, and everywhere I was turning, I kept seeing articles about it. And I always put some in my smoothies, but I decided that I wanted to get a bigger dosage and really see how much that impacted me. And so I mix it with, I drink the almond coconut blend.
Okay.
Milk, just because when I drink just the almond milk, I can taste that roasting flavor. And when they roast it, it's because they're using oils. And so it's almost too smoky for me. Oh. And then the coconut's almost too sweet. So I like the blend. A nice happy balance, right? Yeah. So I do that, and then I put in the turmeric paste. And to make turmeric, you just take a half cup of turmeric and then add in some water and stir it and let it boil. And then it'll make this nice firm paste. And then you just put a couple scoops in your glass of milk and with a little bit of raw honey, which is loaded with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants as well. And it's just a nice, soothing treat. The key with turmeric, though, is you have to mix it with black pepper. And that's because the key ingredient that makes turmeric so powerful for all the health benefits is absorbed 2,000% better when it's combined with black pepper. So I know that sounds really crazy to have in a cup of nice, soothing, sweet milk, but you won't even notice, and it kind of gives it a little kick to be similar to chai.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, here's a question from me. Now, I have turmeric that I bought at an Indian store. I've done a pretty good declutter on my house and my kitchen in particular, but I still have a few things left. And one of them is a big pack of turmeric. Do you have any idea how long that lasts?
Well, for me, my turmeric was lasting forever because, I throw it in chicken and things like that. But once I started making that paste, and then I just have a little container in my paste in the fridge, I go through it much faster. But as far as like freshness, I'm not really sure how long it would last.
Maybe I should get rid of it. Get some new turmeric.
I mean, the big thing is that it probably may not have as much flavor, but the benefits will still be there.
I think the benefits are still there.
It's not going to go bad by any means.
Okay. So that's a tip for you folks too. I mean, one thing I've found, I'm not living in the same area as I was before, but if you're close to like Indian markets, that's a great place to get those spices much less expensively. Just go in. I mean, the bag of turmeric, you should have seen it. It was like huge that I bought. So that's a tip for you too.
Yeah, I think I bought probably maybe 2 cups of turmeric, and it was like 89 cents by buying it in bulk at a health food store.
Yes, very reasonable. Okay, so we've got 2 other areas we still want to cover. We're going backwards in the sequence. So you were telling us about bringing out people's passions in their lives, and I work with a lot of brand new entrepreneurs myself. So tell us how you're going to help them discover their passions, Tami.
I really go through, I'm a desire map facilitator as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Danielle Laporte. Love her.
She's like the girlfriend that everybody needs.
Yes, I've read her books. I love her stuff.
But for me, being analytical software developer, it was really great to connect in with the desire map and really listening to my heart. And it's something I have to practice. And so I really love walking my clients through discovering some of those things that they ultimately desire, and then also bringing in their strengths. And then when you combine those two, it can be really powerful. And so I just, help figure out like, well, what makes you feel alive? And what are you doing that drains you? And then figure out what we can do to like let go of the part that's draining you and bring out more of what brings you alive. So it's absolutely fun. And I think that many times we limit ourselves because we just have all these different excuses like, oh, the economy, or nobody's going to want that. But when you're fully lit up and you show up fully lit up, people want that. Like, I don't care what you're selling. If you're just totally lit up, like, yes, I want that.
Yes. Oh, that's actually a 4th thing that I've seen you talk about. And we've got to bring it in here, Tami. And that's travel.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Tell people about that.
Well, just how I said about like, well, what lights you up? And for me, it's just really great adventure. I have traveled all around the world. I biked in the south of France. I biked in Spain. I've jumped off 130-foot cliffs. I've kayaked in Brazil. So it fires me up, and it's something that recharges me. And so I think it's just a matter of figuring out what recharges you. And if that's spending an hour in the garden, then that's okay. That can be your adventure. But it's really just reminding yourself of what that feels like and keeping fun and making exercise a little bit more enjoyable, because sometimes when you're scared, that's okay too, because it's just one more thing that you're conquering.
Well, I love what you're talking about, because my tagline is work is joy. So I'm all about working with my clients in terms of their strengths, terms about finding out what they love, really finding that juncture point. There was one thing you said in your blog that I loved. I mean, I love so much about you and your blogs, Tami. In terms of the travel, you were telling people, just go ahead and I always talk about baby steps with my clients. And I don't think maybe you used that word, but basically that was the concept. Like, go ahead and book that trip, right? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, because it's so easy to have life get in the way. You know, you want to wait until you can fully afford that vacation, or that, you know, your schedule's clear, or all the different reasons we make up why we can't do that. If your dream's to go to Bali one day, then start researching and find the resort you want to stay at. Because when you put that picture of that resort and you're looking at it every day, you're going to figure out a way to make it happen. Mm-hmm. When it comes to travel and adventure, I've never looked back and been like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have spent that money. And I went to Yellowstone and I went snowmobiling in the winter up there. And it was actually one of my more expensive vacations. And I hemmed and hawed over that forever. Like, oh, you know, I don't know. You know, that's a lot of money for like 3-day trip.
Right.
It was so beautiful, and very few people actually get to see that. And we're riding our snowmobiles between the buffaloes, and you can't put a price on that. And so it really is about creating more experiences in your life.
I've got to jump in here with a story. People know that these interviews are very casual, and Tami and I, we don't have any canned questions. We're just having a little conversation here. But that really reminds me of my grandfather. They lived fairly modestly, and yet he got a $10,000 inheritance at one point from, I don't know who it was, but they got it. And he told my grandmother, he said, you know what? We're going to go around the world with this. It gives me shivers as I tell you this. I mean, what a wise man, right? Folks, don't wait till you're 80 out there to go do your dreams. Do them now. I mean, and then I have a little rug that's right in front of me that's from Turkey that she picked up, and those memories, I don't know, I just think it's a great, great way to live life, to just go for it.
I have some friends that are in their 60s, and they just started house sitting. And so they house sat in Brazil, and now they're in Fiji, and they're paying $500 a month for this little cottage overlooking the ocean in Fiji. And that's just because it just covers the internet and utilities, but they're house sitting. And so they found a way to travel and see the world very inexpensively.
That's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. Okay, so we would be remiss if we didn't talk about your weight training, because that is really key. Talk about getting younger in years. You know, we've got to have our muscles, right? We've got to keep our bones strong and all that. So do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes. So like I said, when it comes to weight training, like that's the thing that really shapes and changes my body. And I know that women, you know, we want to look better. We want to look and feel our best, but many times we're not doing the right things. And so I really encourage making weight training a priority from a health perspective. Like if you have bad knees or balance issues as you get older, it's because the muscles surrounding those joints aren't strong enough to help support it. And so it's much easier to get injured. And sorry, I've been fighting a cold. But I've done a lot of long endurance events and like marathons and running, and it's so hard on your body. And so you just really need to make sure that you have that balance between weight training and cardio and flexibility, because it all adds up. And so as a woman, like, just don't be afraid to lift weights. And the key to really seeing changes is you have to use heavier weights, because you have to challenge that muscle. And the only way to really challenge that muscle is to go heavier and then it'll break it down, and that's when you get sore, but then it rebuilds, and it rebuilds better and stronger. And so you'll start to get that shape that you're really craving. And I know so many women are afraid of bulking up, but the women that you see that are really big like that, they are in the gym for hours and they're taking supplements, and it's so hard to get to that level. So unless you're planning on spending hours in the gym and doing all that, like you do not have to worry about bulking up.
And you're talking about multiple hours, like 6 hours, 7 hours, right? In the gym. We're not talking about 2 hours even 2 hours is.
No, I had a girlfriend who was bodybuilding, and she was in the gym for about 3 hours at a time, twice a day. And she was eating nothing but chicken and broccoli and taking all kinds of supplements. And she won, and she looked amazing. But it goes to show you that that level of fitness really takes a lot of dedication.
Yeah. Well, I actually love lifting weights. We belonged to a little gym way back when we were in San Diego, and I think it was 24-hour fitness or one of those, maybe 24-hour fitness. And we bought like a gold pass. It was supposed to let you into all kinds of 24-hour fitnesses wherever they were, nationwide even. But they kind of changed their policy because they started putting together this awesome little gym, and there was this wonderful woman coach in there. She's the one who really got me enthusiastic about weightlifting. I'm like, I love this. This isn't boring. It's like so much more interesting than just being, on a treadmill forever. And then they decided they'd lock us out, that they weren't going to extend the gold thing to that. So that ended. But the real beauty was that she taught me how to love that. And gosh, I mean, she had a beautiful body. She wasn't, muscle bulging like Arnold Schwarzenegger or, anything like that. She was just a really beautiful woman. So, yeah. Well, I promised folks that I would let you tell them about your 3 programs, or however many programs you want to tell them about, at the end of our interview. So before we go into those, is there anything that you want to impart to our listeners or viewers and share with them before we go into sharing that?
Just one more thing on the weight training is you mentioned that how fun it is and how much better you feel when you do it. I think one of the reasons women don't enjoy it is because they don't quite know what to do, and they look at it as a necessary evil, like they know they should do it. And so they kind of dabble, and they do the few machines that look not too intimidating, and then they don't really get results. And so they spend more time on cardio because they feel like that's where the results are. And so I think that it's just like anything, even with your business and being an entrepreneur. Once you're afraid of something, or you may not even really enjoy it, and it's because you don't know what you're doing. And then so once you learn, also it's easy, and you're like, hey, I like this. Why did I wait so long? So weight training is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we're so lucky to have Tami on here with us today. Go ahead and tell us what you're offering folks.
So I know we've covered a lot of topics today, but one of the reasons I did that is because my tagline is love your lifestyle. And I really feel like it's that big picture of how we take care of ourselves that leads to how happy we are. Because you can be as fit as you want, but if you're miserable in your work, then it doesn't really matter. Or you can be the top dog and the manager and have this big team, but if you're one cheeseburger away from a heart attack, that's not happy either. Yeah. So I really found this way to bring in all this knowledge that I have, and I want to share with others to help them be happier. So with my personal trainer background, I brought in the Women in Weights program. So then that way they can feel comfortable and they can start their own journey and discover how much their body really changes. And I see women, we're so strong. We have a toddler on one hip, a big Coach bag full of stuff, and carrying 3 bags of groceries, but then they're at the gym using 3-pound dumbbells. So I just love reminding women how strong they are. And then my other program, Find Your Passion. And it's because I know that when I've discovered something that brings out all of my strengths that makes me happy, then I can really change lives. And then that is really fulfilling. So the more people I can help do that, then that's one more area where you're loving your life. And then just loving your lifestyle in general. I know that I take for granted my ability to do tech work. It just comes to me naturally. I like to work on my website and stuff like that late at night. And so I love just helping women as part of that Find Your Passion process, figuring out some of the tech things so that way that part isn't so scary. So I really love what I do because I can bring out all of that. And so it kind of depends on what you're struggling with that I can help. So, and then finally the Clean Eating Kickoff that's going on. My campaign is going on right now and starts February 17th. And the people lost on average 7 pounds in 2 weeks.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And that's just from your body letting go of all the waste and really being able to absorb the nutrients and be more productive. So I absolutely love that. So it is a lot, but it really is that big picture of your lifestyle. So how you nourish your body and the confidence you bring forward when you feel better, and then that leads into business. So
well, thank you, Tami. Thank you for being so generous with all of that today. And we will be looking for you on your blog. So I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay, thank you so much. This is a pleasure.
You're welcome. Okay.